Welcome, everyone, to the Better Love Movement podcast, where you will finally learn how to intentionally do dating and relationships right. My name is Anita Stoudemire, and I'm a licensed professional therapist and your personal love mentor. I've worked with thousands of singles and couples, giving them the skills needed to attract and keep the amazing love they desire. It's my heart's work to help people to get the skills needed to not only become the very best versions of themselves, but to help them grow and evolve emotionally and relationally. You can absolutely have the romantic relationship of your dreams. Come and let me show you how. Welcome, everyone. Welcome back again. My name is Anita, and this is the Better Love Movement podcast. We are back again this week with a brand new episode. And this week, we are in episode number 145, and it is entitled, Ladies, Stop Copying the Men. Today, I am talking to Barry Selby, author of the best-selling book, 50 Ways to Love Your Lover. Let me tell you a little bit about Barry. Barry Selby is a best-selling author, spiritual guide, sought-after inspirational speaker, and relationship attraction expert. He's a passionate champion for the divine feminine, helping strong, successful women create balance in love, life, and business. Barry helps women own and express their feminine magnificence in love and in the world. With over 30 years of training and experience, including a master's degree in spiritual psychology and 20 years as a spiritual counselor. He has helped thousands learn to love themselves and live in wholeness. Welcome to the show, Barry.
Thank you, Anita, for having me. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Yes. So let's jump right into the topic of our podcast. Ladies, stop copying the men. Tell me what you mean by that.
Yes. Let's just say before we jump into that piece, I experienced that from the my dating life up until about 2006. So the challenge has been that we have a business environment that was built by men for men. And the women jumped into it back in the 70s or so and had to copy that to fit in. I mean, women had to basically emulate what men were doing to be in the business world.
Right.
And so a lot of women have become very successful, doing things in the world, getting business handled. But then when they go on dates, they tend to do things the way that men do as well. They don't need to disengage that drive and they end up becoming like the men. And my experience of that, just to be totally self-transparent, was I would end up being the nice guy. Because ultimately, to be honest as well, from my upbringing, my family, and we talk about family upbringing too, my father was more of the machismo type guy. Not in a big, boisterous, like muscular guy, but he was just like, my way, the highway, I'm running the show. And I couldn't do that as an adult. I mean, I was firstborn and I just hated that idea of running the show that way. So I became the nice guy, accommodating, pleasant, don't make any waves type style. So when I would date women who were successful in the business world, they would come, to be honest, they would actually ask me out sometimes. The last one, in fact, was one that basically courted me. It was ridiculous. It was so obvious. And I totally didn't get it. I mean, I had no idea. Anyway, she asked me out and she ran the relationship. And she was waiting for me to step up. But she didn't give me room to, or I should say, I didn't find room to, let's be honest.
Right.
And so when we broke up, it was the third relationship row this had happened clearly. When she broke up with me, she broke up with me because she started it, she ended it. I didn't have any control, so to speak. She told me what I did wrong because I wasn't like the person she thought I was going to be. Now, we can get into, again, patterns and we get raised with, that's another piece. But I realized what I'd done is I'd not stepped into that role because I had in my mind two options: be the nice guy or be the macho bad boy. And neither one of them was working. I mean, being the nice guy was safer for me, but the bad boy to me was so toxic, I didn't want to do it. And after that breakup, this is 2006, I'd done a lot of work by this point, as you said in my bio, the things I've done. I was like, I know so much stuff. Why am I still screwing up?
Right.
And so I basically was like, God, give me a clue, a sign, something, a beseeching, the somewhat sarcastic prayer. Well, fast forward 3 months, and I was walking out of my spiritual center I go to in LA at that time when we used to be in Culver City. And I walked out of a Wednesday night service, and this woman was walking into the building, and she was glowing. Now, this is in the evening, not daytime, but she was blonde, tanned, white sundress, and I could imagine seeing neon signs over her head saying, "Talk to this woman." So I went, okay, that's a sign.
Yeah.
So I talked to her, and bottom line was she just got back from a retreat, and she invited me to check out this teaching that was all about masculine and feminine polarity, which to that point I'd never even heard of. I mean, I was a late bloomer, I guess, on that conversation. But when I understood there was a third option for me, which is to be a masculine man, that's when everything changed. And also when I saw women in their feminine for the first time, actually 50 women standing across from me at the end of our weekend who were beaming feminine aliveness and light and joy at us men standing at the side in a masculine, I knew I was going to serve that for the rest of my life. And that's why my bio is what it is. I support women in the feminine because what women have not been told, my belief, is that they're actually stronger in their feminine than they are when trying to be like men.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And I have to tell women that all the time, that there is a power within women that, a man is helpless to it. And I just tell them, it's not controlling, it's not strong arming. It is a very subtle and seductive and sensual power. Absolutely. So I'm always talking to women about that and giving them little, clues on how to express that with a man. That's how you're going to get everything you want. So, okay. So I totally get that. Like you said, women are entering the workforce. And like you said, they're coming in emulating men. They're doing what men are doing. They're not able to turn it off. They're kind of, this is the new them. So what are your thoughts about how women can reclaim their feminine, kind of fall back into their feminine again?
Well, one of the issues that's around is that women haven't been told it's safe to be their feminine. To be a woman was someone's second class for many years. I mean, back, I think 1971 was when women got credit cards. That's only 50 years ago. That isn't that long.
Yeah.
So, and the way that one of my teachers put it is that really what happened was we came from a codependent paradigm to what became independence, and now we're moving into interdependence. So the way that women have evolved through that was they started back in the 50s and beyond that, before that point, where a man would court her from the home and then take her into his place. She would be the passenger most of the way through. So that wasn't very strong, but it also was like she was taken care of, which for a lot of women, I mean, the sexual revolution happened and the women's liberation, feminist movement, etc., happened in the 60s, 70s. Women basically rebelled against that archetype and that limitation to take back their pride. Well, that point of change for women was when they got their power, they didn't want to give it up again. And so what women have felt, I believe, as a group or as a population, is that to become feminine was to give up that power, which is not accurate.
Right, exactly. And I actually hear that a lot from women on my page, when I'm talking about the things I'm talking about. Well, you're trying to send us back. You're trying to, have us give up all the things that and I'm like, no, I'm not.
The thing's missing is that women haven't discovered, remembered, learnt, embodied feminine leadership. Because the reality is that, and let me be clear, it's no fault of the women.
Right.
We have a patriarchal society that keeps putting women down. That's what's really been the problem. The feminine leadership that we need, frankly, because I personally believe as a man who's in his masculine, that this world will not be salvageable without feminine leadership.
Right.
So I'm definitely about femininity being strong. The metaphors I use, again, from teachers I've studied with, talk about how the way that the feminine energy is in the world, because, Mother Nature is feminine. That means all of nature.
Right. Yep.
So
that's interesting you say that. That Mother Nature is feminine. I like that.
Because the feminine energy is movement, is dynamism, whereas the masculine energy is strength and its presence and its depth.
Right.
But that strength is stoicism. It's that place that holds safety and sanctuary for women, but also is trustable. The feminine energy is the dancing light of love, of freedom of expression. And the way that one of the metaphors I use is that the feminine energy is like a massive river that's running through the hillside down to the ocean. And it's a big, powerful torrent of water coming through. That's the feminine energy. The masculine is the structure. It's the banks of the river keeping it in contained, but not controlled. Because a river, as you noticed, rivers will tend to go where they want, and they will override the banks if they get too full, so to speak. So the masculine doesn't have the strength to control or contain the feminine, just to create the safety net for it, so to speak. Another way of putting it is, and it's funny, I was talking about this recently, because up until Christmas time, actually after Christmas time in LA where I live, we've had the backup of all these container ships out on the Pacific coming from overseas that couldn't get into the docks. So, get binoculars, you see tons of them out there.
Wow.
These container ships are huge. I mean, some of these ships are like quarter mile long. They got, they carry hundreds, if not thousands of containers on the decks. They stand so tall. I mean, they dwarf people. Until you get to see one in real life, the scale is uncertain. You can't see what the scale is, how big they are. Anyway, those ships are like the masculine energy. They're big, they're strong. They also don't turn very quickly. We tend to have a challenge with changing direction well. Right. And so that's the masculine presence. The thing is, the feminine is the ocean it sits on. The immensity of the feminine is so big that it is flowing. It is such a massive energy. But again, women haven't been given that truth, so to speak.
Right.
And so for me, what I love talking about is how powerful women are in the feminine. And really, it's only by their grace that we can thrive as men in some ways.
Yep, that's true.
So power resides in the feminine. And when I talk about the dating conversation, I always say that women, you have the choice. Yes, the man has to do the work. He can take charge. He can lead and all this stuff. But if you say no, he doesn't have a chance. Doesn't have a chance.
That's it. I like to call it women are the gatekeeper.
Indeed.
I always teach women, you're the gatekeeper. Nothing happens lest you let it. And I want women to breathe that in. That's a very powerful stance, that you are the gatekeeper. So, and there's a lot of responsibility to that role also. So, yep.
It is. Yes.
Okay.
Don't give it. That's a whole other tangent we go off on.
Okay. So when we're talking about dating, especially modern day dating, like where we are now, what are your thoughts on kind of this role reversal we're finding ourselves in? So we're finding women who want to be more of the masculine and men becoming more feminized. We're kind of in this role reversal.
Well, I think we've been doing that for quite a few years. I think we're starting to come out of it with our help. But there's a different dance. The thing is, the dating apps are really designed for the masculine mind, because it's a sorting system, a hunting system. It's like basically going like target practice, it's like target acquisition. Are you the one? Are you the one? Are you the one? Yeah. So when women use the apps, which you obviously can do, I mean, some of the apps are designed more for women, like Bumble and like eHarmony is supposed to be designed for them, but hit and miss, because the apps present opportunities, which is really how the masculine mind works. We have a selection criteria that's different from the feminine. There's actually a guy, I saw his videos quite a lot. There's a minister back in, I'm going to say Midwest, called Mark Ganga. I don't know if you heard of him.
I love him. He has a talk called A Tale of Two Brains.
Exactly.
I always give that to my couples to watch.
I do too. Yeah. I love it because that explanation is so easy. The two heads is such a great talk. So okay, I figured you might.
It's a great talk.
So that's the thing, is that men and women's brains think differently.
That's right.
And understanding that in dating is important as well. As I said, women have, and one of the things I mean, this has got a throwback for me. It was back in Victorian times in England, but certainly back in the old West over here, I'd suspect, when a woman would drop the handkerchief.
Right.
The action, because that's the thing, the women have the power. Right. She drops the handkerchief to let the man know she's interested. His responsibility, if he's interested in reverse, is to pick up the handkerchief and then to take charge. But again, gatekeeper, she gets to decide if he can have entry to her presence, so to speak.
That's it.
In modern dating, there are very few vehicles that can provide that. Oftentimes what can happen and what can be useful is, and this is partly on the man's side as well, to be honest, because what women can do is to say in the app, click on someone and swipe right and say, I like this person. And then it's up to the man to then take the action. But the problem is a lot of men, when they go, oh, she likes me, I'll sit back and let her pursue me now, which is a mistake on the men's part.
Right.
So it's both sides of the conversation have to be changed too. Women, the thing about for you ladies is, yes, it's okay to swipe right at somebody, but then don't do the legwork. Just be the tease, drop the handkerchief, so to speak, electronically. And then see if he gets the bait or gets the clue and says, oh, now your turn is to then do the work. Yes, have communication, but make sure he's initiating and leading.
Right. And that is actually my firm rule. So I was on dating apps myself for 2 solid years. I deleted all my apps as of December 31st. And I let all my clients know that I was doing that I had gathered 2 years of research and information on dating apps. Yep. And I told women that if ever you swipe, do nothing else, because the swipe is letting him know, okay, I'm saying yes. If you want to reach out to me, I'm receptive. And it surprised me, like even when I did that, like you said, how few men reached out. I was like, wow, this is wow. Yeah. So, but that advice still stands, ladies, that there are lots of ways to flirt. There are lots of ways to let a man know that you're interested, but that's it. If you want to be the feminine in that dynamic, that's the side you have to stay on. So, yep, I experienced that myself. So, okay. So tell me a little bit more. We're going to switch gears here. Tell me a little bit more about the book that you wrote, 50 Ways to Love Your Lover. So who is this book? Who is the book for, and what will they learn from reading it?
Well, the book was written as principles for healthy relationships. So it's good for singles and couples, men and women, straight and gay, frankly, because there's pieces in it for everybody. A lot of the book is about the relationship with self, because I always start with that in the first place with my clients.
Yep.
And also about the role you play in a relationship. But I go beyond that too, about your role in the world. In fact, the book, the 50 principles in there. This book came out before 50 Shades of Grey, just to be clear. It wasn't inspired by that. And it was actually probably about more like 60 ideas when I started. I had basically back early in my work and was focusing on what I was doing, I just put out on social media what I believe about relationships, just like a little paragraph. Like, I think this would be about relationship, this about relationship, put yourself first, heal your own wounds, et cetera, et cetera. And I saved them into a Word document because I didn't know what else to do, because they were on social media or on Facebook, they were disappearing, they weren't staying present. So I wrote them down into a Word document and did nothing with them for months. I probably accumulated at that point, after about 3 or 4 months, I think probably 55, 60 of these. And I was like, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with these. I'll create a handout or a workshop or something. And that a little voice, and being a very spiritually based person, I call it that still small voice. In the back, what I would say in the back of my mind was like, write a book. And I was like going like, who said that? Totally oblivious. And then for a few weeks, I ignored this voice. And finally, the voice had never changed. It was consistent, calmly, and implicitly saying, write a book. So it wasn't getting angry with me. It wasn't getting, it's like I was the one getting upset.
Right.
So like, you keep telling me this.
It's all right.
And if I said that voice, like, okay, fine, how do I do this? And it laid out everything, because what I had also done to this point, having had several previous careers, I had been a graphic designer in a previous career, and I had actually helped 2 or 3 people self-publish their books, because at that point in time, what was now called KDP Publishing used to be called Create Space. Amazon just bought this publishing company and made online publishing a do-it-yourself affair. And so I'd done this for a few people. I designed covers for them and did the layout, and I'm like, this is kind of easy. Didn't think I'd write my own book that way. So I already have one piece of the puzzle. I knew how to write the book. Right. Secondly, what I realized also is everything I'd written down were the stem sentences for the chapters. They were basically the seeds for each of the chapters. In fact, what they became were the chapter titles. They were like one sentence explain something. And the thing for me is creating something from scratch isn't easy, but to edit or to expand is much easier. And I'd given myself that job because I'd written out, oh, this is the key. Explain that. I can do that.
Right. Yep.
And so I ended up with 50. And then, of course, what I was trying to do 50-50. And I went through Paul Simon's song, 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover. So I figured, let me switch that around to 50 Ways to Love Your Lover. And that's really how it came together. And I wrote the first draft, just to be transparent. I wrote the first draft in 6 weeks.
Wow.
And then I got scared and put it away for a year.
Okay.
Because all the stuff came up.
Yeah.
And then I went back and edited it and polished it and then got it released in, I think, 2013 it came out. So, and then, yeah, it's been out ever since.
Okay. Well, I'm sure the information in there is still very relevant now. Like all the greats, you know, their books are still relevant now. So I'm always telling people, don't worry about when something was published. I'm sure that information is still relevant today. So I want you all to check that book out.
We'll say if the app's about, like, you know, the dating apps that came out this week, that might be time-based. But most books that are about relationships and connecting, we've done that for millennia. So it's definitely relevant.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So I also saw on your website, you have a series of inspirational talks called Cracking the Codependency Code. So I'm speaking on this topic all of the time. And as a recovering codependent myself, I see so many women who are struggling with codependent traits. Tell me more about your work on that topic.
Well, that video series is just an introduction in a way. It's a friend of mine who I know came out to LA and we did this 2-hour conversation she made into 5 videos. So I give props to her, my friend Janie, because she really started this whole conversation with me. But I've had this thing about codependency for a long time. And I often talk about my favorite quote that I use all the time to just explain why it doesn't work. Is from Jerry Maguire with "You Complete Me."
Right.
And it's funny. There's a children's book by Shel Silverstein called "The Missing Piece," which is another book on the same topic. It's the premise. The fact is that we keep thinking that when if I'm out the half, I'll be whole. It's like, no, you won't.
No. Yeah.
The fallacy is that we think that the other person is going to make us feel better. And the trap of that, and I use the term puppet master, is that when we want somebody else to make us feel good, we base our experience on what they do or don't do.
Right.
And so then if they don't do it, we start blaming them or get upset with them or we judge them. And so what's happening is their actions control our feelings, which means they're a puppet master.
Yep.
And when you start realizing that's the underlying thing of codependency, it's like, that's no fun.
No.
And in my book, I talk about this, that relationships aren't 50-50, they're 100-100. But we talk about this because we're talking about 50-50 being give and take. It's like, no, occupy all of yourself.
Right.
Meet somebody who occupies all of themselves, then your relationship becomes 200%, not 100%. Even better.
That's right. That's right. And I like to tell folks, codependency is kind of like abandoning yourself, right? You're leaving yourself to, you know, like you said, I'm giving my power to someone else.
Yeah.
And I'm always telling people, don't abandon yourself. Stay with yourself. Like, stay right here. Don't give that power away to others. Don't look to others to make you happy or make you feel fulfilled. I often tell people now, you know, I've been recovered for 25 years. I say, you know, I really do work every day on meeting my own needs. I really do. And I'm just like the happiest person ever. And everybody's like, yeah, you're so happy and you seem so like carefree. I said, yeah, because I stay with me and I invite people along with my journey. Like, hey, I'm on this journey. You want to go on this journey with me? And they're like, sure, you know, kind of that's how I do it. I don't abandon myself in that process. So I do have to work with women on that because a lot of them fall into these codependent traits in relationships. They start abandoning themselves and, you know, I need the guy to be this, this, and this to me. And if he's not, like you said, oh, I'm unhappy. And I'm like, no.
Yeah, it's true. And that, oh boy, I mean, we can unpack this for hours, I know.
Right.
but the codependent piece, the challenge is that we think love requires a certain level of enmeshment with other people.
Right, right.
And so, you know, they should know how I'm feeling, that sort of mindset.
Right.
And one of the things like about women copying the men, well, one of the challenges is that men and women, I mean, one of my favorite quotes from Alison Armstrong, one of my teachers, is that the problem is that women think that men are just hairy women. And recognizing that, no, men aren't the same species. We're different. You know, John Gray, Mars and Venus. We are different populations. So when women think that men should think the way they do, that's an errant approach.
It is.
So to learn that, and again, we can talk back to Mark Gungor's videos. If you just watch the video series explaining how women's brains work and men's brains work, the differences are so clear that when you recognize that, you start going, oh, now I understand why also understand why it's so cool that we're different.
Right. Right.
So it's important for us to recognize that how somebody else thinks does not depend on whether they love us or not.
That's right. That is exactly right. And that's a lot of my work with my couples that I do is the first 2 or 3 sessions. They've all said it. They're like, wow, we spent the first 2 or 3 sessions with you just educating us on how we're different. And I was like, yes, okay, because we have to come to a place of acceptance. Like for some reason, you know, the men want the women to be men and the women want the men to be women. And I'm like, no, we have to come to acceptance that we're different. And that's okay. That's okay. I think it's cool. I love the fact that men are master compartmentalizers. I love that. I'm like, wow, you can be pissed in the morning and come back in the evening and like, hey, babe, you want to have sex? I'm like, wow. Like, and most women don't do that. We're like, don't you remember that fight we had?
It's all connected. You know? Yeah, it's all connected. Right.
So I love that though, because I'm like, yeah, I could use some of that, man. I wish I could just, yeah.
I would take one more step, which is not so much just accepting the difference, but honor the difference.
Right. Exactly. Oh, but I just have to work with them first on just accepting it because they're just like, why? Why is it that way? Why can't they be more like me? And I'm like, no,
just you don't want that.
No, give it up. Just give it up.
Let's make this point clear. Mm-hmm. It's because you're different is why the sex is so good. Mm-hmm. You know?
Exactly. So yes. So I completely agree with you on that we've got to accept and we've got to honor it. We've got to see it as, you know, that really is what's best. That's how we're going to maintain the spark and the sexiness. That's how we do it. So awesome.
In fact, it's the polarity effect. I mean, we'll be seeing about polarity because sex is one of those interesting things that requires a little bit of effort sometimes because sometimes think sex is so easy, you just do it. It's like, well, yes, especially initially, great. But the thing is, and this is also my book about chemistry, is that chemistry is renewable.
Yep.
Because chemistry is something people was like, well, it's the initial attraction, but then it wears off. The honeymoon phase is over. It's like, yeah, no fun there. The thing about masculine and feminine polarity in relationship, and this is true for gay relationships too, but in terms of male, female, because I generally align masculine to male and feminine to female because that's easier. And it's the general theme. When men and women are in their masculine and feminine presences, that creates the polarity of attraction, which is what sex is based on, the chemistry and the connection. But because of life, and again, women copying the men, when women in the business world are doing what they're doing, they're in their masculine mindset. So when they come home, it's 2 masculine energies, which are like this. So it's not coming together. So for women, one of the best things they can do when they come home is do things to put themselves back in the feminine. Right. And smart men who love these women, what they do when their partner comes home, this is one of my favorite things I tell clients to do, whether for the partners, I usually work with women, but is when they come home, is the man takes her briefcase, her keys, her phone from her, leads her to the bathroom where he's already got a hot bathtub running with soap, suds, and candles and said, honey, I'll see you in half an hour.
Right.
And just give it time to just decompress and come back to a feminine. For men, our need when we come home is to just have silence so we can just integrate and come back to presence again. And sometimes watching TV with a beer is all it takes. Yeah. So letting each other's energies restore back to natural polarity is what's important. And in the bedroom, one of the things that one of my teachers talked about was so cool was that because we carry so much of both energies within us, and sometimes we're on the other side versus the side we want to be in, what can be helpful is to actually do something symbolic to create the polarity again. So for couples, what is one thing I recommend for couples is that when you're in the bedroom, before you decide you're going to get in bed to have sex, is to do something sacred. There's a ritual that one of my teachers said was for each partner, for example, for the man, to in his imagination, so he gather up all his feminine energy he's had during the day that he's used for various reasons, to gather it at one place to give it to his partner for safekeeping. Okay. And then she does the same thing with the masculine energy she's been using all day, gather it up, give it to a partner for safekeeping. Right. There's something, first of all, it creates intimacy, but secondly, it helps to exaggerate or to amplify the polarity. Right. So that little shift can change everything. And it's those sort of practices that you can do with your partner that can really transform your relationship if you're becoming, what's what I'm looking for, bored.
So for me, that looks like, because as I always tell people, when I am in my practice, when I'm running my business, when I'm teaching couples, I am in my masculine. But for me, that looks like I start it from the moment I get in the car. I put on music, I sing, I come home and I usually, greet my pets and I spend time with them. Sometimes if the weather's, well, in the summer when the weather's nice, I go out to my garden, I talk to my garden, I may pick vegetables from my garden. That all of that grounds me back into my feminine. I cook an amazing meal. And like you said, I'm not directing anything. I'm not leading anything. I am just, in this state of bliss. And so I've been encouraging women to do that more. Like you have to say to yourself, okay, I'm taking this off. I'm unscrewing my head. I'm dropping down in my body. Okay. Because I always try to teach women, we're going to screw off our head. We're going to drop down into our body. How are we feeling? We're going to get in touch with that. And I want you to stay there, especially in the presence of your man, right? You're not telling him what to do and leading him and doing this and I need this, need that. No, just be. It's beautiful. So I've been teaching women more and more how to do that because a lot of my clients are attorneys or doctors or business owners. And they're like, yeah, how do I get out of this? Like, I don't want to carry this home. Ugh, I don't want to. I said, but you gotta, I start from the car. I put on music. I start singing. I'm doing something that's connecting me to that creativity within me.
There's something said about that. Talking about the car, one couple of people I know who are teachers in this work, they work and live together. So they drive together back to and from work.
Okay.
And they kept getting to arguments. And they couldn't figure out what was going on. Then they figured out, there's the key.
Yep.
They have about a half-hour drive home from work every day. So what they decided to do was they're going to break it up into 15-minute slots. The first 50 minutes is in silence. And the second 50 minutes is talking, because in the first 50 minutes of silence, he can just empty his mind out, can become present, let go, and just be in the day. After 15 minutes, he's open and receptive. So when she wants to talk to get herself present, she can just get rid of the day by talking about it, and he can take it in without having any problems. When they get home, they're relaxed, they're comfortable, they're back to themselves, and they can enjoy each other.
Good.
But that half an hour changed everything.
Yeah.
So it was doing it.
Okay, awesome. Well, we have had an amazing conversation, and really, I feel like it's the tip of the iceberg. So, Barry, I know, Barry, I will have to have you on again. Man Crush Month. Man Crush Month is such an interesting month because, again, I get to interview some wonderful men on the podcast, but then they give me more to think about. And I normally reach out again in a couple of months and say, hey, would you like to come back on again? So we can keep talking. So definitely, I see that in your future. So
I look forward to it. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining me this week on the podcast. Is there a product or a service that you'd like to tell us more about?
Sure. Well, my book obviously is on Amazon. You get that there. On my website, I do offer discovery sessions to those people who want to get more information about my work. So that's on the homepage. I have an online course called Attract the Man You Want, which helps women clarify their vision and intention, what they want to create. That comes on its own or with private support. So those are on my website. So check them out. They're available. I don't have anything timely at the moment, but it's always available. So you check out my website, which is my name, barryselby.com.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Well, I'm going to have all of this information for my ladies in the show notes. So I want you to check that out. If you are not subscribed to the podcast, ladies, I want you to subscribe, join the party, and subscribe on whatever platform that you listen to podcasts. And even better is if you head over to YouTube and you subscribe to the channel, you can see the video of this interview. So please subscribe, please like this video. I would so much appreciate that. Even better, if you could review the podcast, please rate and review the podcast so the podcast can grow and I can bring you even more free content. If you have a question that you'd like to have answered on the show, please send it to me at info@betterlovemovement.com. You can find out more about me and all of the services that I offer on my website, www.betterlovemovement.com. You can get information on love mentoring there, my book, and let me tell you all, I am working hard on the follow-up to Choose Well, a simple formula to determine the best man for you. It should be out by Valentine's Day. So you may pre-order the new book on Amazon now. But thank you so much, ladies, for listening. Thank you, Barry, again for joining me.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. It's been a really fun conversation.
Yes. Ladies, as always, stay open to love.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast episode. If you are enjoying this podcast, please leave me a 5-star rating and review. Your ratings and reviews help me to continue to bring you more great content. Head on over to YouTube and check out the Better Love Movement channel. There's more video content there, and you can subscribe to be notified when a new video is posted. If you have a question that you would like to have answered on the podcast or in a YouTube video, please send it to me at info@betterlovemovement.com. You can also connect with me directly on the Magnify app to have your dating and relationship questions answered. That's MAGNIFI, and it's available on iOS and Android. You get your first 5 minutes for free. So give me a call and let's chat.